Hey, marching band folks. Well, it's September and the season has started. We obviously kicked off things last week with 4 local events and about a little over 40 bands participating. This week is even busier. We've been over 90 bands going out, so I figured it was time to do a marching band corner for September with some quick observations from the start of the season, but also some tips and other information about new stuff that's happening this season. I want everybody to make sure is front and center as we go out week 2, week 3, week 4. Getting into the bigger part of the season here. First off, we have new recaps. Obviously, there's some new software happening under the hood, which most of us won't see, but the recap will look different. I'll throw it up on the screen here. And obviously, this is not a real event. The band names obviously are kind of bizarre there. If it doesn't look that different to what we've done in the past, great. That's what we were hoping for. But the layout's a little different. One thing that is different, in the recap itself, is going to look mostly the same. We used to give out individual band recaps with just your specific scores and ordinals on there. We're no longer doing that, so it's not a mistake at your event site. I'm not sure how many folks even kind of noticed those were in the packet. Obviously, the overall recap is probably more important. There's nothing that's not going to be communicated to you. Obviously, you have the adjudicator sheets in your hand that have all of the numbers, subcaptions and everything. Timing and penalty sheet will still be there, but those numbers won't all appear on a separate piece of paper. Now it's kind of homogenized inside the recap. Another big thing this season is we've changed how timing protocols are handled, or timing penalties are handled in the first part of the season, weeks 1, 2, and 3. Essentially, there's no timing penalties for weeks 1, 2, and 3. So you can go out and perform a show that's less than 6 minutes, and there's no timing penalty deducted. There's no rating penalty. So just to kind of give you some numbers here, last year we had in week 1, 3 bands went out. Out of the 45 or 50 that performed that weekend and performed a show under time. And of course, this was 2022, so they were penalized. This year we had 11 bands go out, so almost 4 times as many went out and performed a show under time. In other words, people are taking advantage of that option. The nice thing, of course, is that for you as a director, it lets you kind of decide what you want to put on the field. You're not locked into that 6-minute line in the sand, so to speak. So maybe you're not going to cram to put the closer on the field or stand and play to get across that 6-minute mark. Maybe you pull the show at 4 minutes, 4.5. We had a lot of bands right in that 4 or 5 minute time frame. And they got some great feedback, got a score that was not modified or a penalty deduction. Keep in mind, you've got to be at 6 minutes though to qualify for state marching band final. So we actually had a few bands this week go out and earn a superior, which was great. But they were under time. So they haven't qualified for state, but they got the superior rating, which is pretty good accomplishment for the kids for sure. We've had some folks with copyright concerns this year too, a bit more than normal. It seems like post-COVID, it seems like it's taking longer for the industry to handle our copyright requests. At least that's my anecdotal observation. In any case, we had some bands that maybe didn't have one piece cleared for copyright, so they played the 2/3 of the show or 3/4 of the show that was cleared, and of course that put them under the barrier, but no penalty. So remember, that exists for weeks 1, 2, and 3. So maybe that'll change your rehearsal plans or something, give you a little more leeway to kind of meet the kids where they're at when you put them on the field. Also, some electronic rules changes this year. One big one that might help some people out, I'll show us a screenshot here. This is a band that performed this weekend. Check this out. We can see the front ensemble there along the sideline. The forward line of the grounding zone isn't actually really obvious in this video or this picture. It was defined by the field markers, which you can see one behind the field commander podium there. But you notice the speakers, the main speakers are well in front of the front ensemble, which in past years was not allowable. The speakers had to be placed, of course, in the grounding zone. You can place speakers now wherever you would like, so they could even be forward, farther out on the track. How this might help you depending on how big your front ensemble is. If you have a really, really big front ensemble and you don't like putting the speakers on the end, now you can bring those speakers in more centered. If you're using shotgun microphones on the field to capture winds at some point, signal to noise ratio or gain before feedback is a concern, of course. So if you get the speakers a little farther forward, you might notice you can push those shotgun mics a little hotter. In other words, capture a little more sound before they feedback, which could be useful as well. Sometimes people just have logistical concerns with getting them placed. So if that helps you, great. If not, it's not something you have to worry about, but you can place the speakers outside the grounding zone, which again, I think for some folks might be a good advantage. Keep in mind, of course, we've added a rule about wireless equipment. Please keep that wireless equipment offline until the band's coming on the field. And when we say wireless equipment, we're talking about the microphones or the transmitters themselves. So if it's a wireless microphone that's all one unit, switch it off. If it's a body pack on a student, make sure they turn that off until they're coming on the field. What we're trying to avoid is frequency confliction between a band on the field and a band either in warm-up or right there along the sideline. If I have my wireless mics online and I'm standing on the sideline or on the track about to stage, if the frequency for my wireless mic is very close to the bands on the field, it's going to conflict, and they could have dropouts. Static can manifest itself in a lot of ways, but all of them are bad for the band on the field. So the receivers themselves in the rack can be online if you're running a battery backup or something like that. That's not the problem. It's the broadcast unit, the actual microphone itself, or the body pack if it's a small clip-on mic for a microphone that's on an instrument or something like that. So kind of keep that in mind. That's a new rule for this year. Just in general with Flow, we didn't have any penalties this year or last week. That were related to improper staging or something like that. But remember, just make sure you practice with your parents or whatever your crew is to get stuff on the field. Remember, parents are allowed to move equipment. They can stand backfield and hold props if necessary. They're allowed to be on the field. You probably want to try to make sure they're behind the prop and not waving to the audience or something like that. But they are allowed to serve in that role at your discretion, of course. Also remember, too, that in terms of setting things up on the field there, we want to make sure we're obviously get our equipment inside the grounding zone, except for the speakers. That's not a problem. But something else that's new this year, you're allowed to test your electronics before the first announcement. So let's say my band's about to come on the field, and timing and penalties official says, hey, you can go ahead and preset. So my 15-minute block hasn't started yet. We haven't done the first announcement, the so-and-so band, you may now take the field for pre-placement or warm-up. That announcement has not happened. So my band, this is how most events roll, right? My band's pushing equipment on the field, and front ensemble gets set, and then we all kind of stand there for a minute or maybe 90 seconds waiting for the first announcement, which is pretty common, right? Unless it takes you a long time to set up. You're now permitted to test electronics before the first announcement. So in the example I just gave, my front ensemble is there, they've powered everything up, and my synth player is waiting because we want to make sure it works, right? And in the past, you had to wait until the first announcement. Again, the first announcement is so-and-so band, you may now take the field for pre-placement and warm-up. We can now test electronics the moment we're placed, before that first announcement, which the nice thing is it gives you a little bit of extra time, maybe even a minute perhaps, if you do have a problem, to kind of troubleshoot it, as opposed to feel like you're under the gun after that first announcement happens. So that was never allowable in the past. Now it is, and that might give you, I'm sure that's going to save a few bands from maybe a really stressful moment there after the first announcement's made and you test the keyboard and it doesn't work and you got to figure out what it is. So it gives you a little bit of extra time. If that's a little confusing to you, or maybe how that works with a pre-show or something, just send me an email and I can maybe clarify it for you. A few other things real quick. We're now using Competition Suite to send messages on the day of the event. These will actually come directly to your phone as an SMS or a text message, not through the Competition Suite app. And we'll mostly only use this in situations where, especially in a weather situation where there's a delay, obviously that's really handy to be able to send out a message to people quick. Or if there was some kind of obstruction or something, maybe there's a wet area or something on a warm-up area that's discovered halfway through the event, or some, I don't want to say an emergency, but a situation where the event chair wants to get a message out to all participants quickly. Again, that'll come to the director's phone, directly to your phone, and it'll show up with an OMIA, Ohio Music Education tagline at the very top. That's going to be the header, or the person it's from, essentially, because they're all branded under our comprehensive Competition Suite account. So that might seem a little disconcerting at first. Certainly later in the season, after you've had 2 or 3 events, maybe you've got multiple messages, you might keep that in mind. It might be a little hard to keep track which one it was from, but it shouldn't matter after the event is over, of course. Just a few other things real quick. Remember, our rules as far as disseminating adjudicator commentary, of course, you get it off Competition Suite. You can download that. If you're not trying to do that, let me know. I can give you that information. Let's say you want to share that adjudicator commentary with your students. You're more than welcome to do that. We ask that you keep it in a password protected environment. So your school's LMS or learning management system, maybe Schoology, Google Classroom, whatever it is, that's a perfect venue to share it with, because obviously it's located with just the class. Obviously the commentary should be shared with your staff. I mean, get them set up in Competition Suite. You're welcome to email it to them, but that's an extra step. You can put as many staff members as you want inside a Competition Suite, and of course then it shows up right in their phone. So that gives us lots of options, of course, to disseminate that commentary, and hopefully pass it on to kids and staff and everybody who needs to hear it. So hopefully some of this was helpful. As always, reach out to me. If you're out this weekend, good luck. Looks like the weather's going to be great. And I'm really excited to see how many bands qualify this week for week 2. Good luck out there.